Hello and welcome to We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP Government and Politics program, in collaboration with Nauset's video production class. Football, wrestling, soccer, basketball, and lacrosse are all considered contact sports. According to a recent Yale University study, injuries from these sports cost American high schools more than $19 billion a year. 15% of contact sport athletes will experience at least one concussion while in high school, according to the Centers for Disease Control, and the medical efforts of concussions can last for decades. Some say it's time to pull the plug on contact sports in high school. Others argue there's more to these sporting events than injuries and concussions. I'm your guest host, Siri Lindberg, a senior at Nauset and a veteran of the AP Government program. Over the next 30 minutes, our We the Students panel will examine the question of whether or not contact sports should be banned from America's high schools. Just for the record, opinions expressed here belong to the panelists and are not the views of Nauset Regional High School or the Nauset Regional School District. Now, let's meet our panel. Arguing against contact sports, we have Ethan Keeney, Michael Whitney, and Henry Watson. Arguing for contact sports, we have Max Finocchio, Ben LeBranch, and Artie O'Neill. All right, so why do you guys think that contact sports should be banned in high school?
Contact sports like football, hockey, lacrosse, and soccer all put athletes at risk for head injuries like concussions and even more serious diseases like CTE. High school athletes are at a stage in their life where their bodies and minds are still developing, so they can be even more vulnerable to brain damage that can have lasting effects on the individual. We believe that a simple way to eliminate this potentially life-altering risk is to just outright ban these sports from being played in high school.
We believe that contact sports in high school should not be banned. Around 55% of high school students participate in sports. Around 50% of those sports are contact sports. If contact sports are banned in high school, over 3 million kids will not be able to participate in a sport that helps them learn valuable life lessons and work well in a team.
Well, that's assuming that anyone who plays a contact sport can't just switch to another sport that plays in the same season.
Well, what if they don't want to?
Well, they still have the opportunity to.
Not everybody likes baseball.
But if a football player often isn't going to go and just join a track team. Like, they play football because they love the sport. They don't play it just to play a sport and to build on teamwork. And often, non-contact sports are just one person, not really team-based, so they don't get that team chemistry and working well with others.
Yes, but you can also get that from clubs like drama and music.
But,
why not do that as an alternative?
Yeah, but many athletes don't want to do that or aren't talented in that. They play the sport because they like it and they're good at it. So you can't, football is drastically different than drama. So you can't really just take a football player and throw him into drama and get the same output that he would from playing football.
Correct, but you're arguing that he won't get the lessons as he does in football if football's banned, but he would still get those same life lessons if he did drama or theater.
Well, not really, because he won't connect with the people. He doesn't have things in common that he does with his teammates in football.
I don't believe that.
Also, drama isn't going to keep you in shape as well as football would, and we have a pretty bad obesity problem in our country, so I just would argue that drama doesn't keep us in shape.
Yeah,
Well, the school still offers lifetime activities and outdoor adventures and those kinds of classes if you want to stay in shape as a student.
I mean, let's be real, those classes you can get away with not actually participating and not staying.
But the kids who are motivated to not be obese will participate in that, to be healthier.
Well, that's the problem with our country is we're not motivated to not be obese.
Yeah, a nationwide survey taken by the State of Obesity states that 14.8% of all American high school students are obese. And you can't tell me that without contact sports, that number won't go up.
Well, the motivation to play contact sports and the motivation to join gym classes, it's pretty much the same. If anything, it's more of an investment to play sports because it's more of a time investment. You have to stay after school for several hours, but it's much easier for a student who wants to fight an obesity problem to join a gym class instead.
Yes, but sports, you all play sports. The practices are much more rigorous than a gym class. Like, let's be real, gym class is pretty laid back. So if you wanted to apply yourself in a gym class while you're playing, say, Nauset ball, it doesn't mean your other like class members are going to apply yourself the same way. So you can get just as much out as if you were playing, say, soccer and your team is pushing you to work harder.
Kids who don't want to be obese will be motivated to participate and to motivate the people around them. Even if people around you aren't motivating you, you can still find in yourself to motivate yourself.
Yeah, but it won't have the same effect as if people around you are helping you.
Well, you still have the opportunity to play physical sports that aren't contact sports. Like, you can still choose to do cross country in the fall, for example, and that sometimes can be even more, can include even more physical activity than football, like doing all the running they do, like miles each day.
Yeah, I just don't think that that argument is valid because, like, when you choose to play a sport, kind of like what I said before, you choose that specific sport. It's hard to transfer from such different sports. Like, swimming and lacrosse are very different. So just because you can't play lacrosse doesn't mean, oh, you can go to swimming and it's like a seamless transition. It's very different.
Well, you might not be as skilled when you switch sports, but you can still get the physical activity that you got from the other sport.
Yeah, but then the enjoyment will go down. And often sports are kind of like a getaway for things going on in your life. Maybe there's like troubles at home, and then that like hour and a half, 2 hours you have of practice, you can just forget about that and like focus on getting better at the sport you play. But if you don't truly enjoy that sport, your mind's going to be sidetracked the whole time and it won't act as that getaway.
Well, you still have the opportunity to join clubs if you want to spend time with your friends and people who share the same interests as you. You still have opportunities to go to the school and do stuff like that.
But what if they don't want to? Like, I personally don't want to partake in a club after school.
If they're trying to get away from something at home, I think they'd be motivated to stay at school as long as possible. And do
Well,
anything
then
they
I
can.
would say I'd want to participate in a contact sport.
But what we're saying is if contact sports were banned, what would they do? They would want to join a club.
Yeah, but then they'd be joining the club just to get away from what's at home. So it'd be on their mind the whole time, like what would be going on that they're getting away from. Sports they're playing because they, like, if they're playing contact sport like football, they love the sport, so they're focused on that sport. But if they're playing something just to get away from something, then they're still going to be focused on that.
Well, that might be their mindset at first, but if you get into a club and you start to enjoy it, then you're not going to even think about how you're only doing it to get away. If you start getting into the club, then you're going to be focused on the enjoyment that that club brings to you.
But they will never have to adventure out to that club if they still can just play the contact sports that they
But
enjoy.
Contact sports can affect them after practice too. They can have an effect on their academics because recovery time for concussions is important for many injuries that regularly occur in contact sports. This recovery time takes away from students' education as they are missing classes and cannot look at screens, which most homework is done on.
Well, I disagree with that because a survey taken by Kara Fleming in 2015 that studied all of Missouri's schools showed that the student athletes have an average GPA of 3.28 in Missouri, while non-athletes have 2.98, which is 0.3 higher. So they're
but
really
if they have
exceeding.
concussions, they have to take time off from academics, which puts them behind. There's no debating that. That's part of the protocol.
Well, that's just student athletes in general. Does it stay specifically for like football players?
Or concussed student athletes?
Well, not everybody gets a concussion. Like,
Yes, but there's a much higher risk when you participate in contact sports.
yeah, but you're saying if you get a concussion, which you may not, you're gonna,
But I don't
Do
think
harm.
that risk is being worth taking.
you don't think, well, if you sign up for the sport, you know that there's a risk that you may get a concussion.
Some kids don't.
Some kids don't.
No.
You don't play soccer knowing that you may get a concussion.
I do play soccer, but that doesn't mean I'm part of the problem.
You-
I can still acknowledge the effects of the sport.
So
that can
you're,
have on you.
you're saying that someone who signs up to play football may not know that they're at a risk of getting concussion.
Correct.
Well, they might not be fully aware of the effects of these head injuries that can have on them, like now and in the future. Like CTE is caused by thousands of repetitive hits to the head, and it only really shows up later in life. So they might not be that aware of how CTE can occur, and so they might be going into football completely unaware that just normal football play can result in this incredibly dangerous disease that can kill brain cells.
And
But-
contact sports aren't the only, contact sports don't only like trigger CTE, they also trigger different things like Parkinson's disease and ALS and Alzheimer's. They trigger these diseases, and kids, they might know that this might happen, but they don't know like the high percentage that it might affect them.
But what percentage of these people that you're talking about who suffer from these mental diseases are from high school sports? Like, I feel like every time we hear about an athlete maybe dying from CTE or like the effects of it, it's because they played professionally, like in the NFL or something, and constantly took hits from the biggest players in the league.
Well, certainly going to the NFL greatly increases your risk of getting CTE because of the increased number of head injuries that will occur there, but it's the same type of injuries that they will be still getting in the high school level. It's just the increased number of them is what greatly increases the rates of CTE. But still, getting hit so many times in high school is not good for the brain, and it can still lead to CTE.
Yeah, well, the hits are also a lot like minimalized in high school. So I feel if you just played a high school football, the hits and the amount of hits are going to be so much less that the effects later on are just going to be very minimal.
Well, actually, CTE, the rate of CTE increases, and well, it's more dangerous to get hit with subconcussive forces, which is forces to the head that will not actually give you a concussion. Those are more dangerous to getting CTE than like harder hits. Just the repetitive small hits to the head is what really causes CTE.
Also,
So-
when you're in high school, your body and your mind still isn't fully developed yet. So even though the hits might not be as big in high school than they are in the NFL, say we're talking about football, they still might be a big deal to the state your mind is at the time.
So
And going into the future.
I have a question for you. So Mikey, what you were talking about, like small repeated hits, would that be like hitting a soccer ball?
Well, that actually does cause CTE.
Yeah, I know, but it's not part. If you're saying soccer is a contact sport, heading a soccer ball isn't part of that contact sport. It's a contact with the ball, but it's not contact with other players.
Well, it's still a part of the sport that is the most dangerous for getting CTE.
Yeah, but it's not part of the contact sport.
Well, that's the main contact is when like players are going for the ball, and the most dangerous ones is like when goalies kick it in the air and they're all rushing towards the same ball and they make contact to try and head the ball.
Well, I play soccer, and from what I've seen a couple concussions happen in game, and they've always been from hitting a soccer ball. I've never seen a concussion from people hitting. I've seen like maybe broken bones, like twisted ankles from colliding, but never head injuries.
Well, what makes it a contact sport is that all the toll it takes on your body, and certainly getting hit repeatedly with the soccer ball makes it a contact sport.
I agree that concussions aren't good, obviously, and injuries are bad.
Well, that's
but-
good.
Well, it's not like the sport, like the schools hope that people are going to get concussions and stuff. Like the National Federation of State High School the National Federation of State High School Associations, they stiffen the rules for football in the name of safety. They've eliminated blindside blocks. They've cut down practice hours in the summer to cut back for like heat-related injuries, and they've definitely improved concussion protocols in the past few years.
I acknowledge that you've acknowledged that there are developments in the sport, but concussions do not only occur when there is a direct blow to the head. Concussions can also occur when there is a direct blow to the body, which creates whiplash for the head and neck. This whiplash makes the brain slam against the inner cranium, creating impact that leads to concussions. So even if precautions are being created, it doesn't eliminate the effects of concussions.
There is also a major thing besides, as an alternative to banning the sports in general, there's several innovations in technologies and in equipment and stuff. So according to ColoradoParent.com, just 32% of youth football players and 11% of hockey and lacrosse players wear mouth guards. But according to Science Daily, researchers suggest that when it comes to buying a mouth guard, parents who want to reduce their child's risk of sports-related concussions should visit a dentist for a more customized mouth guard instead of a store-bought mouth guard, which wouldn't work as well.
Correct, but it doesn't eliminate the fact that your brain is still moving around in your head. And someday there might be technology to make sure that your brain stays stable inside your cranium. But that day is not today, and that's why we think that contact
want that
sports should
stuff
be
in my
banned.
head.
I would argue that
Technology isn't there yet.
every concussion is unique in its own way. Like every
Like a
person's-
snowflake.
Every concussion is unique in its own way. Like, if you vary between girls and boys in the same sport, such as soccer, like they've done studies that show that girls have a higher concussion rate than boys due to the fact that their neck muscles aren't, on average, as strong as a boy's neck muscles. So every concussion is dependent upon the player and individual. I wouldn't say that like every person has the same rate of concussion.
Exactly, but there's still a rate. And if there's still a consistent rate from contact sports that create concussions, which lead to severe diseases in the future, they should be banned. Contact sports should be banned.
But contact sports aren't the only injury-causing sports. Like, the dangers of concussions were stated in a American Academy of Pediatrics in 2012, noting that cheerleading actually accounted for 66% of all catastrophic injuries in high school girls athletes over the past 25 years. So saying that concussions
Good ban.
are only caused in contact sports is not entirely true, because also basketball is the top leading concussion causing sport, which is not a contact sport.
Okay, well, we're not saying that we should ban everything that might cause a concussion. We're saying that these sports are provide the most risk for getting concussion, and not just concussions, other diseases like CTE that you can't really get all the same level of repetitive hits to the head in basketball that you can in football, which is why those sports need to be banned.
Mikey, could you just say which sports you would like to be banned?
The most important sport that needs to be banned is football, and other sports like lacrosse and hockey and even soccer provide.
Ethan and Henry, being the fact that you guys both play contact sports, how would you guys go about your life if you didn't have those sports in your life?
Well, we enjoy the sports, but we do know the risks, and we know how to take care of ourselves when the situation comes to treat a concussion.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what we're arguing
Yeah,
for.
you
No,
know this,
but
you
that
know
if
how to
you play
treat
the
it, so
sport-
why? If you know how to
Because
treat
we
it,
enjoy
why
the
would you
sport.
ban it?
Because
Yeah,
we
you
enjoy-
enjoy the sport and you know how to treat the situation when it arises. So why would you want to ban it?
High school sports don't necessarily provide the most resources for the athletes in contact sports. So if club sports were year-round with consistent coaches and specialized trainers that you have to pay for instead of just participating in, I think that would be much better to that you could tolerate the concussions with the people around you that are specialized in it.
So if high school sports were banned just for school, like if contact school sports were no longer, wouldn't you think that kids would just turn to club and travel sports that were contact?
Correct.
And
they'd
It's not
still
high
be-
school.
That seems
But
kind of
they-
irrelevant then, because if you're just banning contact sports in high school, they're just going to go play the same sport.
And they're still
But they,
gonna get
in high
those
school, they don't
injuries.
get the necessary resources that they need, that athletes need.
I
You
feel like
play
that.
to participate in club soccer and club football.
I can speak from experience. Our high school has the own personal trainer right here. My club soccer team definitely does not have their own trainer.
There's a trainer at every one of our games.
For
Since when?
club soccer,
Correct.
for high school soccer, we have an athletic trainer at the high school who is very good in keeping us safe, and she puts us in the good concussion protocols every time you get a head injury.
But some of the equipment that the athletes use, such as football pads, they're passed down from generation to generation to generation, decreasing their impact on the safety of the students and the athletes. In club sports, you need to you buy equipment, new equipment, specialized equipment, advanced equipment for each season. That will help you from not maintaining a concussion.
Then maybe the school should, instead of just banning the sports outright, shift more money towards getting newer and more technologically advanced equipment.
Yeah, but that equipment isn't there yet, so we can't just wait for that to come while these kids are still
Well,
going out.
If it's there for the club sports, why can't it be there for the high school sports?
Because contact sports in high school generate an average of $19.2 billion nationwide.
But
So if advanced equipment was gained, then schools would have to pay even more and more.
But that number has to include some safety equipment in itself.
It does, but if you're saying that we need to advance it more and more instead of just cutting it out, that number would go up.
Well, then it's just the price of safety is whatever you're willing to spend on your safety.
Correct, but I agree with that, but
If you don't want to be safe.
but
then-
if the school spends more and more money on their contact sports and their equipment, the level of their education will go down, and their infrastructure of the school will go down.
The school will waste more money on protecting kids from these dangerous diseases while they could focus on improving the education itself.
Henry, let me ask you a question. Do you watch the NFL?
Yeah, occasionally, yeah.
What do you think the makeup of the NFL would be in 20 years if we were to ban high school sports now? You think it would exist?
I think it would exist because athletes who are still dedicated and want to go to college and play in professional, they will go to ID clinics and one-on-one with coaches to advance their play.
So you think if we ban high school sports, that college sports won't be the next, sport? You don't think they'll be banned in college next?
Well, college is much better funded, so they probably could afford those improved safety precautions. And also in college, the athletes' bodies have completely developed, so the injury risk is much lower than in high school.
But how do those athletes get to college?
Well, they do. High school does provide some showcase of the athletes' talent, but the athletes who are serious about taking it to the next level in the sport can still work with coaches, can still go to showcases like the NFL Combine, which is independent from high school athletics.
The
And there
NFL
are
Combine's after
After
college. It's not leading up to college. And
But they get exposure in college. After
Yes,
working
but
with
you
And there's
can't-
prospect teams while the students are in high school that get seen by colleges.
But okay, you guys don't play football, but can you name any club football teams around here?
Yeah, there's one in Weymouth when I was up in Weymouth the other day. About
Right,
6 or
there's-
7 teams with college coaches were there.
All right, but then how many high schools are there in Massachusetts? The
know.
exposure to go to college
Do you know
comes.
how many high schools there are?
I don't know how many high schools.
315, I think,
There's,
I believe.
but all the exposure for these colleges is from high school. So if you take that away, there's going to be drastically less numbers of college players than going up into the NFL. And the NFL provides just under 120,000 jobs per year. So if that falls under, it could really there's 120,000 people without a job.
But we're not debating about that. We're debating about the safety of the student athletes that play contact sports.
We're
Not
debating
debating-
about whether contact sports should be banned, and that could be one of the products of contact sports being banned in high school.
Well, most, if not all of the students that around here won't make it to even college sports. So that's a lot. It's still putting a lot of people at risk just for a few people that are going to make it to the NFL.
Yes, but it's also helping 120,000 people's jobs. yes, it's a small portion in high school, but it could have larger effects higher up. That's like NFL's a big market for like commercials, TV networks, so those could tank without the NFL's support, the viewership there.
So if people can't play in high school, then no one's ever going to get to the NFL. That's what you're saying.
I would believe that the amount, the NFL would slowly decrease until there would be no longer any more high school football. Every player in college football then that goes to the NFL, they all start in high school football.
Do you guys have any closing statements?
Yes, thank you. Ultimately, contact sports are a choice. If you're afraid of being injured, then contact sports aren't for you. You are responsible for your actions. If you get injured, you signed up for the sport.
And do you have a rebuttal?
I just think it definitely is worth it in the long term to ban contact sports, because not allowing students to play these sports may negatively impact their high school experience in the short term, but the health and safety benefits will carry them far into their adulthood.
Right. Anything to add to that?
No.
Okay.
Nothing?
Well, I don't know. I think that, like, yes, it's the safety is a huge problem, but you know what you're signing up for with contact sports. You know that there's that chance of maybe a concussion or maybe another injury like broken leg or something like that. So you should come in knowing that. And I think kids should be given the choice of contact sports, whether they want to take that risk of the injury or just, stay shelled at home.
Well, it's like the making alcohol illegal for minors. You can choose to drink alcohol when you're below 21, but it's still going to negatively impact you in the future, which is why it's banned for all those under 21.
Yep. Well, alcohol is completely different from contact sports.
Well, it's still,
Like,
the end result can be the same of having great negative effects to your health.
yeah, but when you contact sports, when you just play a game of football, and there's a chance you might get injured, but when you drink alcohol, you're going to go through the process of like being drunk if you have enough of it, which is going to have a negative effect either way. But contact sports, you're not guaranteed an injury every time you play. You're not guaranteed a concussion every season.
Well, you're still guaranteed to have those impacts to the head, which is the main contributor to CTE.
But that doesn't mean you may get an impact to the head, but that doesn't mean your brain is gonna suffer from that necessarily.
Well, it can if it's enough. Like alcohol in small amounts is not going to be that damaging to your body, but
I thought we were arguing about contact sports.
it's an analogy, Ben.
It's a poor
We're trying to
analogy.
relate it to stuff.
Yeah, one of those times that you get hit could mean it might trigger one of those diseases that end up changing your life in the long run.
All right, so unfortunately we're just about out of time, so we'll have to hold our discussion there. We'd like to thank the Nauset High School's television production class and Lower Cape TV for making this valuable experience possible for all of us. That concludes another segment of We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset High School's AP US Government and Politics program. I'm Siri Lindberg. Thank you for watching.